Last time out, West Ham suffered a disastrous defeat to Wolverhampton Wanderers at Molineux. And up next is title contenders Liverpool. Still, Liverpool at the London Stadium. Last two games at London Stadium, they have scored 9 goals against us. Defensively, we're not doing fantastic. What are your thoughts on Liverpool?
Well, the stats aren't great, are they? You've just mentioned the stats about them scoring 9 goals in the last 2 games. I think in the last 3 or 4 games, they've scored on average 4 goals a game against us, home and away. They're formidable, aren't they? And our current defence going to find it quite difficult to cope with their attack force. I don't think there's anyone out injured attack-wise for them. I know Alexander-Arnold is injured, but he's a defender. So it's down to us praying and hoping who might be fit to play at the back. I think we heard from Pellegrini yesterday that Fabianski should make the game, which is a massive relief. Absolutely. I think they were looking at testing Creswell today to see if he'd be fit enough, and there's a good chance that he will be, because I think without them two, it could be another drubbing, I'm afraid.
Absolutely. Still, I mean, Liverpool have got such a. I mean, it's going to one of those seasons again, and you know all the Liverpool fans will be worried that they're going to fall at the final hurdle. Depends on results over the weekend. They could come into the game only 2 points ahead of Manchester City. Let's talk about Liverpool and what Klopp has brought in. He's got his keeper that he's been craving for so long, and he's got his central defender, Van Dijk. I mean, he is just an absolute warrior in that back of that defence. He's just resolved every potential issue that they have had. But I suppose the biggest threat and the biggest concern for us collectively is going to be that attacking force of Mane, Firmino and Salah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those three guys?
Between them, they've scored, 26. They've scored 35 goals this season. Salah scored 16, Mane 10, Firmino 9.
Oh my God!
You know, so. But then you add to that you know Salah's had 7 assists, but there's one player who's a defender, is Robertson, who's next in line with 5 assists. So it's not just the attacking force. It's like it seems to have given, you know, you've just mentioned them strengthening their defence, but it seems to have given that whole team that energy to sort of drive forward and have have players making chances from all parts of the field. But that those three, you know, if they start against us, I mean, what do you say? You know, they are really formidable. The only thing I can try and give ourselves any shred of hope is if they do go into the game only 2 points ahead of Man City, it might make them nervous, you know, and they might come into the game, you know, thinking we need to maintain our form and get a win out of this. You know, the alternative is it might just make them more determined to say, sod this, we're going for it, let's make ourselves 5 points clear. Yeah. So Klopp has brought a lot of confidence into the team. You know, you've seen past Liverpool teams. You know, you touched on it. They've kind of fallen at the last hurdle in the past, but you just can't see that happening at the moment. You know, that they're strong everywhere, and not only are they strong with their first 11, they're strong with their backups as well.
I was just going to say there's strength and depth there for them.
Yeah, I mean, you got Shaqiri, you know, who come on and change the pace of the game. Score, you know, he scored a good few goals coming on as a sub. Yeah. You've got other players that sort of like they almost, you know, they'll come in and it'll be. Whereas an awful lot of other teams will bring a sub on in it, and you think, well, that's not going to make much of a difference. With Liverpool, you know, if their starting 11 aren't doing it, they'll bring someone on that can actually change the game. Yeah. And I think that's the scary thing, because, you know, against us, you know, if they've got the bulk of the game and it's not going well for them, we'll just get tired, and then they'll bring someone like Shaqiri on who's going to make it even harder for us. You know, that's what Klopp has brought. He's brought an awful lot of strength in. He's spent a lot of money, but he's brought a lot of strength in depth for that money.
You mentioned the player there, Robertson, on their the wing back. He plays in a left back position, but he's fantastic at going forward as equally as a defender. And obviously, I mean, we're going to come on to West Ham in a minute, but is Liverpool, is Klopp going to look at our weaknesses and say, outpace every single one of those players and penetrate the middle of that defence and just
mate. Yeah, we've got, as much as it's been an interesting week on social media with how people have been actually slating Pellegrini for the results. And yes, a manager takes responsibility for that, but 100 million only goes so far. Whereas with Liverpool, Klopp started off with a decent squad, and he's just made it even better. And Klopp will turn around and say, yeah, West Ham has spent 100 million, but there are still gaps in our midfield and in our defence.
Yeah.
And he will, Robertson will be facing Zabaleta probably.
Yep.
But you know what? Zabaleta is one of the warriors that will just keep raising his game, and ironically will probably have a half decent game against Robertson.
Yep.
But it's our left side, isn't it? That's the bigger concern. So Klopp will say, penetrate that right hand side. Yep. To get on if Masuaku plays, and that's a weakness. He'll have a couple of very pacey, skillful midfielders who will look at Declan Rice as being the only player that will be able to stop them, and he'll say, focus on Noble and play around him, and that's what Klopp will do. And it's not. You don't need to be a fortune teller to work out where our weaknesses are, and Klopp will know that right from the off.
The 25 games Liverpool have played, they've scored 55 goals, conceded 14. They're averaging just over 2 goals per game. Their shooting accuracy is 41%. Their passing accuracy is 85%. Defensively, they've had 13 clean sheets, and like I said earlier on, have only conceded 14 goals. So that's a half a goal per game.
But that the last goal they conceded is against Liverpool, Leicester, 1-1.
Yeah.
We've got to take a leaf out of Leicester's book, and we've got to see how Leicester played against them.
Yeah.
It's not beyond the realms of impossibility for us to get a result from Liverpool. It's how we approach the game.
Yeah. But they definitely like to play the ball out from the back. This new style of football that everyone talks about, Guardiola set up and started. But I mean, you can see that by looking at statistics here. When you look at Virgil van Dijk, he's their top passer with nearly 2,000 passes from the defence, and he is that style of player. So Alisson rolls the ball out and finds him, and I suppose that's going to be something that West Ham need to potentially be looking at, is the counter attack, because I think I've seen a few times this season West Ham try to do that, but I don't think we've got the players with the ability.
No, we haven't got the players, and we haven't got the calmness to do it. Whereas Liverpool, the way to get at Liverpool is, when it's not to give them that space to play it out from the back.
Yeah.
The reason why Van Dijk has made so many passes because he's not been put under pressure.
Yeah.
So and I think the times where Liverpool may have slightly struggled is when we play a high line, which we know Pellegrini likes to do.
Yeah.
And if we can close them down right from the front, rather than sit back and wait for that counter attack, maybe we'll stand some chance of nullifying their play.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. It's Liverpool are becoming masters at what City do. The irony, of playing it from the back. And you're right. They're calm and they're collected, and they've got players with technical ability that can do that and do it really well.
Yeah.
And Van Dijk has been quite pivotal to that.
And I mean, you mentioned there about Leicester, but in the last 2 games they have conceded 4 goals. They've scored 5. But the 2 teams Crystal Palace went to Anfield and gave them a game, gave them a good game, and Leicester City also went to Anfield and also gave them a good game. So I think there's hope there, and we've seen Pellegrini's press conference in the weekend. Are we breaking up there a little bit?
Mate, your mic is breaking up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the microphone. Yeah, I kind of heard that. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Palace tried to take the game to them, but you've got to be smart. You've got to. You can't try and take the game to them for the whole 90 minutes because you're going to get done.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what I mean. Teams like Palace and Leicester have probably turned around and gone, look, there's not, there's no reason why we shouldn't go for this, and see what we might get out of it.
If we're going to concede 4 goals, we may as well try and score 4 goals at the same time. Yeah,
exactly. And I think I think it would be dangerous for us to sit back and wait for the count. We're at home, and yes, we do have a lot of pace when we're on the counter attack, but we can't sit back and absorb a lot of pressure because Liverpool are too clever in their technical play. They'll find a way through. So it will be, some are going to argue, well, you've got to sit back and absorb it and hit them on the counter. And I say, I get it. But as you've just said, if we're going to end up conceding 4, we might as well go out and try and score 4, and I think that might catch them by surprise because I think what teams are trying to do is they're beginning to try and work out Liverpool and they're beginning to realise if we go at them, they might just that might just take them aback a bit, and that will give them something different to think about. That will disrupt their flow of play. So I don't see why we shouldn't. We're at home. We'll have the crowd behind us. It's an evening game under the floodlights. Why not? Why not go for it? It'll get. You know what? West Ham fans always moan about, we've lost another game. We always say as a West Ham fan, if you give it your all and come out with a loss, at least we've tried.
Yeah.
But what West Ham fans don't like is when we don't try or seemingly don't try, and then get spanked. So it's going to be hard. But why not give it a shot? Why not sort of really go for it and see what we might get out of it? And that might actually disrupt Liverpool's flow. Absolutely.
Brings us on to West Ham and the late fitness test that potentially Arnautovic. I mean, I think it's touch and goal 50-50 whether or not he'll make it out. I mean, moving transfer window aside, how important is it that Arnautovic is fit for this game still?
I keep remembering what happened in December when he was out injured and we got through without him, and I think everyone keeps forgetting that, our winning streak, I can't remember now. I think he was only part of one of those games.
He was, and he came off.
Yeah. And this whole, it's interesting to have read what's come out from the players this week about the transfer window and how much more it's disrupted them than we all thought. Zabaleta came out with his comments that, and he was trying to stress it wasn't only about Arnautovic, because we've had things about Hernandez, things about Perez, things about Obiang. There's been about 4 or 5 players that have been, Oxford has gone off to Germany. There's been 4 or 5 players in the squad that have had rumours around them. And then all the stuff about, players coming in. And it's really interesting what Pellegrini said in his interview yesterday, where he said there's only one player we were after, which was Medel. So all these transfer rumours that come out, you do wonder who starts all these rumours and how much truth there is in them. Before we went online, mate, you said, came from the horse's mouth. The only player we were after was Medel. And the only reason why we didn't get him was because he didn't come free, which is what Pellegrini was led to believe. Yeah. So I forgot the question you asked, mate. I went off on a tangent.
It's not like you ever do. Listen, get your comments in below and let us know your thoughts on. You were talking about Arnautovic and the time where he didn't play with West Ham when we hit that run. Yeah. Do you, let us know your comments in below. And do you believe that he is important for West Ham, or can we survive and kick on without him if he is injured? And still, just to counteract that slightly, I mean, that run was fantastic, but we are up against. I mean, the way I look at it is how important was Arnautovic against Manchester United and Chelsea.
Yeah.
And it's like he is. It's like he raises his game for them for that level.
Listen, mate. Don't get me wrong. He is an important player. Every player in the squad's important. But I really, I think I said this earlier in the season. I really want us at West Ham to get away from this relying on one player only. We should have 3, 4 or 5 players that we should be turning around and saying, this is a group of players that we rely on, and we've still got other players that can do something special. We've still got the likes of Anderson, etc. That can make or break a game. And Arnautovic is important. If he doesn't make it on Monday, then he doesn't make it. And we play the players that we've got. I do have a fear about our front line. If Carroll starts another Premier League game, I'd be really worried. But we even the best of teams aren't going to survive against Liverpool, are they? Let alone us. It'd be good to have him on, but it'd be good to have him on if he's fully fit and if he's fully up for it. And if he's not fully up for it, then don't play him.
Still, there's something, I don't know if I'm reading into this or not, but with the Andy Carroll situation, and it's coming up against his old club, and but how many times have we seen Pellegrini, put faith in him?
I told you before, mate. I think I said it before that Pellegrini has got no choice but to talk up players like Andy Carroll. He's got to try and G them up as best he can in order to try and get something out of them between now and the end of the season. Yeah. But, mate, I've been at the last few games and I've seen Andy Carroll myself against Bournemouth, against Wimbledon. Honestly, mate, he is...
Oh, no, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, he's finished as a Premier League footballer.
Yeah.
He really is. He can't run. When you look at the way he runs in a really funny sort of way, and I think that's the injuries that have taken their toll on him. He runs in a funny way. Yeah. He turns in a funny way. He looks like he's just not. He's just no longer Premiership class. Now, I might be wrong. He might put him on Monday and he'll bloody score some wonderful header or something, but I can't see it.
But it's still not our answer.
No, of course he's not. Of course he's not. He's not our answer. No, but here's going to be something controversial. If it's not Carroll, and if Arnautovic ain't fit,
well, he's going to play. We've got a choice of two other one-away strikers. Apparently, if you believe everything you read, that Hernandez and Perez are sitting there. And do you know what's interesting is if we do keep going back to some comments that were coming out of training that Noble had said that Perez is potentially one of the best finishers. And still, you mentioned the other day, I think in 12 games where he's not started, he's scored 5 goals. It's not a bad.
He's scored some. He's got a fairly, despite the stick he gets, he's got a reasonably decent return.
But still, and the counter argument for that is, and I had to bring it up, is the Hernandez situation, because when you look at his stats and his return for the amount of games he started, it's not that bad either.
Well, it's not, but Hernandez. You
can't help it.
No, but there's a difference here. Out of the two players, and they were both rumoured to go in January. Yeah. Out of the two players, I think it's Hernandez that wants to go more than it is Perez.
Yeah, you want game time.
And I think, and I've said this again, I think the whole thing about Hernandez wanting more game time. The biggest irony of it all, mate, is the fact that he's been out injured quite a few times this season. Yeah. So and when he has been fit, Pellegrini's played him, or he's certainly given him enough game time, coming from the bench. So this whole thing about him looking for more game time, it's a bit, I don't know. There's something else going on there. He doesn't want to be at West Ham. That seems fairly obvious.
Let's quickly talk before we go on to predictions about our defence. Since Balbuena's been missing, Diop has looked at former man of himself, and Zabaleta's not been up to standards of the past couple of weeks. We all know about Augie and Masuaku. Genuinely, still, it's a big problem we have, and Liverpool and every team that comes up against West Ham are looking at that weakness and absolutely tearing us to shreds.
Yeah, I agree.
What does Pellegrini do? I mean, was it a mistake to get rid of Oxford? I mean, I don't know. I can't help but think, why not give him a chance? But the fact that he's left makes me think he just doesn't want that chance.
Yeah, I think if Pellegrini had seen something in Oxford during training and in the under-23s, he would have played him.
Yeah.
But clearly he hasn't. So we don't see what goes on the training ground. We don't follow much the under-23 games, so we can't sort of say, 100%, what Pellegrini's thinking. But my guess is if Pellegrini saw something in Oxford during training and during the under-23 games, he would have turned around and said, Okay, you're coming in. Look, he's brought Diangana in from the under-23s. He's brought Coventry on the bench. He's brought other players in from the under-23s. May not necessarily have got a game, but they've been on the bench.
Yeah.
So why not Oxford? So clearly he doesn't fancy Oxford because he obviously hasn't seen enough in Oxford's attitude, technique, whatever it might be. And the interesting thing is now Oxford's gone to that team I can't pronounce in Germany.
Yeah.
Pellegrini's comment was, let's see how he gets on to see if he's got a future at West Ham.
Yeah.
Which means Oxford's got another opportunity to prove himself.
So how many
chances? Yeah. How many chances does Oxford need? You know, so if he's, I know we all remember him back. You know, first season Bilic. You know, he had Mesut Ozil, in his pocket and all that sort of shit against Arsenal. But that's it. That's all we've seen in what four seasons. So if Pellegrini has not seen anything near that level, then I'm not surprised he hasn't been picked. So, but you're right, we've got a problem at the back, you know, and again, Pellegrini said, you know, Diop's played every single game this season. You know, Zabaleta's played at the age of 34.
Interestingly, Diop didn't start the season though, did he? Because it was Balbuena and Ogbonna. And then Diop came in.
Oh, true.
Yeah,
true. Okay.
And he came in and formed that partnership with Balbuena. But we have absolutely, I mean, there's no ifs or buts about it. We've missed it, and we are struggling with strength and depth. But for me, I don't think they're going to do it in this game. But I would definitely like to see something. Something has to change. But I don't think particularly this is going to happen in this game. But I think coming to near the end of the season, you know, with maybe 6 or 7 games to go, and we've got the guaranteed mathematical safety thing under our belt, then it's time for Pellegrini to... Matt, who's been on the show quite a few times, has stated before that if Pellegrini didn't know what players he was going to keep moving forward, that the Wimbledon game would have finally confirmed that.
Mate, yeah.
And then moving forward, this is his now, you know, after signing no players, this is the big test. This is the test to see who Pellegrini fancies moving into the next season to build again in the summer.
I think he already knows who he's going to keep and who's going to let go. I think he's already made his mind up.
Yeah,
I think Matt's right. The Wimbledon game just cemented that thinking. I think what Pellegrini will do is he'll get us another 9 points from the next whatever number of games, and then you might see him start experimenting. The minute he gets absolute security in the Premier League, that's when you might start seeing Josh Pask maybe coming at the back. You know, by that time you might get your loved one Reed back fully fit. You know, by that time there may be other players, you know, that might sort of come through the ranks.
But you see it through you see that through teams within similar positions to us. Like when Wolves were playing us, within the last 5 minutes they brought on, you know, and they were comfortable. They were winning 2-3-0 at the time, and they brought in a few youth players, and it's.
Yeah, but you do it when you're winning, mate.
That's what I mean.
Not when you're losing. So,
which is a good, you know, we believe that Pellegrini will do things like this.
Yeah, I think he will. The fact that he's brought in Diangana, the fact that he's kept faith with Rice, the fact that he's put, you know, players like Coventry and other youth players in the squad in the subs bench, you know, means that he has got faith in them. But he's got to do it at the right time. So I think, as I said, once we're safe, you know, another 3 wins, then you might start seeing a few more players being introduced. But probably not till then. He's got no choice, mate. You know, we've got no reserve centre backs at the moment. You know, and what you asked earlier about Oxford. If Oxford was good enough, if he thought Oxford was going to do a job, he would have had him on the bench, which he hasn't.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know who else he's going to pick. You know, we've got Fredericks is back, so at least it's a little bit of cover for Zabaleta. Creswell hopefully will be back, and then you got Masuaku, which, well, you know, we talked about him so long for so many times. But then 2 centre backs is Diop and Ogbonna, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. Listen, we're not going to bore you anymore. Let's get straight down to predictions. Still, what are your thoughts and predictions for this week as we welcome... Oh, well, one final thing I want to say is some other team news for Liverpool is James Milner has served his suspension. So he is due back for Liverpool, and hopefully he doesn't smash to pieces Anderson like he's been doing the past couple of weeks against the other players. But yeah, still predictions for the game on.
I don't know, mate. It depends on who starts for us. I joked earlier in our WhatsApp chat that if Masuaku and Noble start, we'll get battered. If Noble starts, we'll get beat. And if neither start, we might get a draw. I can never. It doesn't matter who we play. I hate predicting a loss.
I'm the same.
I hate it. So I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for a 2-2. And I'm laughing about it as well. But I'm going to go for a 2-2.
Yeah.
I've got to believe that we find a way of. I've got to have faith in seeing what Palace almost did and seeing what Leicester did. I've got to believe that we are capable of doing something similar, and I'm going to go for a draw.
So we all know Liverpool are going to score goals, or are scoring goals left, right, and centre. But West Ham always, we like these games. Hopefully we want to show up and show the fans. It's under the lights. It's a nighttime kickoff. It's in front of the TV cameras. Hopefully it's not an embarrassing one. I've just got to hope that some positive West Ham turns up. So there's a heart and a head option here. And, my heart says a 1-0 win to West Ham. And my head says something quite similar to you still. A draw. And then there's realist that I'm not even going to give my comment because I'd never predict a loss.
Has there been a game this season that Liverpool haven't scored in? Do we know?
Not that I know of, but let's just.
I bet that.
Let's just hope Monday's the one. Make sure you get. Yeah.
There's always the first. There's always the first for everything, mate. Yeah.
There is. Listen, make sure you get your comments in below. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the notifications to let us know when your videos are up. Still, any last points regarding the Liverpool game?
No, I'll be there. So let's hope it'll be an enjoyable evening.
Fingers crossed. He's been Stel. I've been Anton. This is Irons United. Come on, you Irons.